Well, our Detroit Pistons are off for 5 days straight because of the NBA Cup, but we've still got a lot to talk about. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Pistons Daily, your favorite daily podcast about the Detroit Pistons. I'm your host, Tony Nash, and as I said earlier, our Pistons are off for the next several days because of the NBA Cup. We broke that down yesterday on the episode, talking about who I thought might win the NBA Cup. Love to see some of the comments you've been putting in there, and make sure you check that episode out if you haven't. Remember, we are on the road to 2,500 subscribers, and we're getting close. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and like the channel, subscribe to the channel, I should say, and make sure you hit that notification bell so that you can be made aware the moment new content drops right here on Pistons Daily. And so I want to get into a couple of things today. We have several things to talk about, and something I'm going to do this week, since it's an off week with not many games, obviously till the end of the week. I want to, from a coach's perspective, I want to break down a couple of players each day. I want to give you, as I mentioned before, I'm a high school basketball coach, and I just want to give you my perspective on each player as I've seen them, as I've observed them this year, some of the things I really like, some of the things I don't like so much, and how I think they really fit into our squad. And would love to get some good feedback going, would love to get your feedback on what you think about these players and how you think they fit. And of course, I'm going to give it to you straight. These are my opinions. These are the things that I've observed, and I'm not at all putting myself in a comparison to the NBA coaches, but I'm a student of the game. I love the game, and I love our Detroit Pistons, and so I wanted to give you my thoughts on each of the players. But before I do that, I don't know if you got to see this, but JB was on 97.1 The Ticket, and they were asking him, what is your message to Detroit fans as they're watching this team develop? And we're going to have ups and downs throughout the season. And he had a really, really great message. If you haven't seen it, go check that out. But just everything you would want to see your coach say about our team. He said, number one, enjoy the ride. He's like, we haven't had a lot to cheer for in a long time, but this team is certainly giving us things to cheer for. So he said, enjoy the ride. He said, this is a great group of guys that is playing a beautiful brand of basketball. And I couldn't agree more. I think one of the hardest things, trying to be objective about the rotations, which we've talked a lot about on this podcast, is I really like each of these guys. These players, I'm becoming fans of all of them. And so your heart tells you, let's find a place for every one of these guys to get minutes. But your basketball mind is telling you it's probably not going to work long term. It's definitely not going to work long term. And so who do we cut? Who do we shorten their minutes? Or who doesn't get to play as much? Because it really is just a great group of guys. And this brand of basketball they're playing, it's Detroit basketball, right, baby? It's defense first, it's grit, it's grind, it's playing hard, and we really, really love it. He says if you watch these guys, if you really watch the games, you're going to fall in love with this team. And I'll tell you, I haven't missed a game this year, and if you haven't either, you know that's true. We're really falling in love with these guys. And so I encourage you, those of you who watch this podcast every day or even watch casually, watch the games, not just the highlights, not just what I have to say or what other, commentators have to say, but if you watch the game, you're going to really start to like these guys because they just play hard. And it's really hard to find NBA players that play hard every night. But this group of guys, these Detroit Pistons, play well. And a lot of that has to do with our coach, JB, changing the culture here and really following that Detroit basketball blueprint that we've come to love. He says we're going to have ups and downs this year. There's going to be adversity. We're going to have win streaks. We're going to lose some games. We're going to lose guys to injury, and different things are going to happen. Things that are going to be out of our control. Guys are going to have off nights. Things are going to happen. But he says that's all part of the long NBA season. So he just encouraged fans, enjoy the process. This is going to be a lot of fun. He says if you love the game of basketball, if you love competition, if you love sports, then this is the team for you. And this stuff was just flowing out of him. It was so naturally because this is at his core what he believes about our team. And that is true. I mean, if you love basketball and you love competition, this team is going to bring it every night. So just a great group of guys. So he said, I ask for your support of this team. He said, I ask that you have our back, as a lot of people are going to criticize. A lot of people are going to give their opinions. And again, they're going to have adversity. We're starting the season off with a really good record here, and things are looking good. We're still sitting first at the top of the East. But it seems like in the comments, every time we lose a game, the sky is falling. And that's just not how it goes. There's going to be good nights, there's going to be bad nights, and we got to love these guys throughout. Again, I will always point out the things that I think need to get better and the things that I think need to improve, even from the coaching staff, from my perspective. But, man, we got to be patient with these guys. They're young and they're figuring it out. These guys, he says, these guys play for the fans. They play for Detroit. They play for the state of Michigan. They've really bought into that. And isn't that what you want as a fan? You want guys who are playing for our city and for our state and really representing us, and I think these guys really are. He said they got that identifiable, that relatable identity that Detroit Pistons fans have come to love. He says they play gritty, they play tough, they're blue collar, they're ferocious. And I think those are all great descriptors of this team. This is the team that is really bringing back that bad boys, Detroit basketball, those nasty dogs, or those nasty boys as they're calling them, the dog pound. We love it. So I think JB has done a great job in just such a short time turning this around and really building an identity and a culture that the fans love, it's getting us wins that these players can get behind, that the fans can get behind. And so I loved hearing his positive message about the team. I think it's great advice for the fans. I still think that JB has to figure out these challenges. We lost another challenge on Saturday night in the second quarter, a challenge that as soon as I saw it, I'm like, please don't challenge this one. And he did, and we lost once again. So coach still has to figure out how to get these challenges. Very low percentage success rate this year. Again, I've said before, I think it's a result of too much arguing with the officials. They're not giving him any of the 50-50 calls. And so I hope he figures that out. But that doesn't change the fact that I think JB is our guy. He's the coach. He's the one that's going to lead us to a championship. But those are some things that I think he needs to really, really figure out. Now, I said that this week, because we have some off nights, I'm going to break down my thoughts and give you my take on each of these players, the players that I've become a huge fan of, these players that I love. And so I'm going to give you my honest take on each of these guys, and take it for what you will. Again, I want to hear feedback. I want this to be a back and forth conversation. I watch the comments and I read to kind of see where everybody's at. I also love hearing things that you want me to talk about. And I want your opinions, and we'll have great conversations. We'll become friends in the comments. And so I don't know if you saw this quote. Actually, this was the other night at halftime when they were playing the Pacers. And they, of course, he got the start. And they asked him what he thought about the game and about these guys playing zone. He said, this is a grown man's game, and they're out here playing zone. He says, they're afraid to match up against us. I'm sorry, this is when they were playing the Bucks. He said, this is a grown man's game, and they're out here playing zone. They're afraid to match up against us. And you just love hearing that as a fan. You love hearing that from Stu. You love, seeing Stu. He walks out of the game, and he points at the Detroit across his chest. He loves this team. He loves the city. He really kind of embodies that Detroit hustle, that Detroit grit. And just to see, sometimes we've talked about how his emotions can get the best of him, but just to hear him kind of talking trash, even at halftime, was great. I mentioned this yesterday. The average NBA team sees zone about 3% of the time in their games. And right now, the Pistons are seeing zone 25% of the time. And we've talked about why, maybe some of the outside shooting, the fact that we're not working inside out, we're not finding ways to attack the seams and attack the zone. And we figured it out on Saturday night. We did a really good job breaking that zone down. Didn't work for them. And I think this week, with a bunch of practice time, that they'll probably even work some more sets to work through that. But I love seeing Stu just talk some smack, right? Some good old trash talk. Say, hey, man, you guys are afraid to go up against us. And so we'll just prove it. And then they asked JB about his altercation with Bobby Portis, which it was great to see. It sucked seeing him go out of the game and Bobby Portis just kind of having a game after Stewart went out. But then to see Stewart come back on Saturday and really give him the business, and Portis was a non-factor in the game. That was awesome to watch. But they asked JB about it. He said when they asked him, when he put his fist up and they said they read in his mouth that he wanted to smash him or take him out back, he goes, no. They were talking about cooking, and he was talking about making smash burgers. You got to really smash the meat down. So I thought that was a funny way of JB kind of just taking the heat off that situation. But he also said that Isaiah Stewart is the best defensive center in the league, and it's not even close. And I tend to agree with him. And there's some statistics to back that up. Stewart said, Coach knows how much I care about defense, how I have a real passion for that side of the ball. He knows that about me, and he appreciates that, and that means a lot to me. And so having a guy that's committed to defense, that's a rare thing today, because a lot of times defensive statistics, they don't show up on the stat book. There's a lot of intangibles that happen to get stops. Sometimes it doesn't always result in a block or a steal, although it does quite a bit with Stu. But just the deterrent of guys coming into the paint, or the shooting percentage that goes down around the paint when Stewart, around the rim when Stewart is in the game, is a real factor. And the fact that a guy is committed to it, that wants to play defense, whether he gets the credit or not. And Stewart just seems to me like one of those selfless guys. Like, whether he's coming off the bench or whether he's starting, he brings that same energy every night and commits to doing the difficult things, the hard things. Man, he had an incredible block on Saturday, and I shared some of those over at Instagram at Real Tony Nash. And so I appreciate this about Stu. Stewart is becoming one of my favorite Pistons. Again, going back to the Bad Boys days, I loved Rasheed Wallace. I love Ben Wallace. I love Dennis Rodman. I love Rick Mahorn. And even Bill Laimbeer, I like those guys. And so I think Stewart is from that same cloth. He's cut from the same cloth. And he's becoming one of my favorite guys to watch. And I'm very pro Isaiah Stewart. He's second in the league in blocks. He's averaging 22 minutes a game, which I think needs to go up. I'd like to see more minutes from Stu, averaging 6 rebounds a game, a half a steal. And he's shooting 53% from the field, which is one of the higher shooting percentages on our team. He's shooting 41%, almost 42% from the three-point line, which is something he brought back this year. Last year, he didn't shoot a lot of threes. They asked him earlier in the season at the media day, are you going to start shooting threes again this year? And he said yes. And he's shooting at a pretty high rate. Now, he's only averaging a few attempts per game, but at 40%, when he's in there with Duren as that stretch four, it really does damage. It's wreaking havoc on teams. His true shoot, I'm sorry, let me get ahead of myself. He's averaging 10 points a game. His points per 40 minutes. So per 40 minutes on the court, he's averaging almost 18 points a game, 17.9. His per 40 rebounds is 10.6. So, that's right up there. His true shooting percentage is actually 63%. And his blocks per 40 minutes is almost 4 blocks per 40 minutes, which is absolutely bonkers. Those are great stats. And so I love seeing Stewart on the court. My biggest critique would not even necessarily be of him. I would like to see him play more, actually. I like to see him out on the court. I would say he's got to work on foul trouble. He's got to work on when to pick his battles and when to talk. But I really want to talk about when he and JD are on the court together. And I talked about this at some length. But Stewart and JD last year were only on the court together for a total of 8 minutes for the whole season. So we didn't get to see a lot of what the two bigs would look like. I think we tried that with Wiseman and Duren. Was not a good combo because neither of them are necessarily outside shooters. But with Stewart now shooting the corner threes and hitting them at a pretty high percentage, him being that stretch four really has proven to be effective. This year, they've been on the court 168 minutes together. And during that time, they're a plus 18. The margin of points when they're on the court is actually 14 points. And the attempts in the paint actually go down by 20%, according to the rest of the NBA, or averaging it against the rest of the NBA. And a percentage of points at the rim go down almost 15% with those guys both in the game. And so you see it. When those two are in there, people will drive to the paint and they'll kick out because they see the Twin Towers down there. They know that both Duren and Stewart are tremendous shot blockers. And Stewart, especially with those long arms, he knows how to time it. He gets up, he gets his hand on the ball, he knows how to avoid contact. And so I've been a big proponent of, and I don't know that JB will ever do this, but I love seeing JD and Stewart start together. So I'd love to see that combination. And man, if we could talk Tobias into coming off the bench, it really wouldn't affect his minutes that much, but he'd be leading that second unit as one of our few guys that can create their own shots. LeVert can create his own shots, but he's really not that guy, in my opinion. I've shared that a lot. Let Tobias come off the bench and let him be the leader of that unit, along with some of our other guys. I've shared before, I'd like to see Jaden Ivey work his way back into the starting lineup. So then that second unit would look like Tobias, Duncan Robinson, Ron Holland, Paul Reed, which I think is proven to be a true effective backup center. He's an immediate impact player. I'm going to talk about him later in the week. Came in Saturday night for 10 minutes, had 10 rebounds. Just immediately impacts the game, finds a way. So I think he should be JD's backup. Tobias should back up Harris, or vice versa. If Harris is going to start, let Stewart back him up and come in earlier. And I want to see more of him and JD on the court together. And then probably our best option right now at backup point guard is probably Dennis Jenkins. He seems to play better with the second unit. Didn't play great with the first unit. Probably tried to do a little too much. But I'd like to see us continue to develop him because I think there's a real potential for him to be a great player in the NBA. And so those are that's my take on Isaiah Stewart. I'm big Isaiah Stewart guy. Love what he's doing. And I want to hear your thoughts. Like, do you think my takes on him are accurate? Are there things about him that you don't like or that you do? I know he gets a lot of criticism in the NBA, especially by officials and commentators because he's a hothead. But I really like what he's doing. He is a Detroit basketball guy. And I think guys like him are the future. And although Tobias is great, I love what Tobias is doing. He's a veteran leader on our team, and I don't want to see us lose him. I also think as guys get older, they have to be willing to maybe take a lesser role. So maybe if he does start, maybe he takes fewer minutes and lets Stewart play a little bit more with Duren. But I would love to see Stewart eventually work his way into that starting lineup. And I think his outside shooting is only going to continue to improve. And what that gives us on defense is absolutely fantastic. And speaking of defense, I want to kind of go into my take now on Ausar Thompson. Ausar Thompson to me was the person I was looking forward to at the beginning of the season that had the biggest upside, the biggest opportunity to take a big leap forward. You see what his brother's doing in Houston. He's got athleticism through the roof, and just really a big impact player. I think he's one of the cornerstone pieces that we have to keep here in Detroit, that we build around. And, of course, he's had an injury. He's had some ups and downs this year. He started off the season really well. Actually, through the first 5 or 6 games, he was our second leading scorer. But I think personally that we're underutilizing him. And I know that's why, my daughter just came in. I didn't realize she was here. By the way, I'm at my offices today doing my podcast, so that's why you see the different backdrop today. But anyways, Ausar Thompson, getting back to him, I think coach is underutilizing him. He's only averaging, I think, just under 28 minutes a game, which doesn't seem horrible, but over the last 8 to 9 games, it's actually been around 25 minutes. And I think that's because they're trying to get minutes for guys like Ron Holland and for Javonte Green. And even sometimes Karras is taking some of Asar's minutes. Usually Asar is the first one to come out. And at his age and with his athleticism, he needs to be playing more minutes. He definitely impacts the game. People say, well, it's really hard when they're playing zone because he's not an outside shooter. I totally disagree. I agree that he's not a great outside shooter, but he really, if you watch, he attacks the seams really well. And there were multiple times where he got in, drew 2 defenders, and kicked out, and really was impacting that zone. And he even had a couple of little short floaters or little short turnaround buckets around the basket. And so he knows how to attack and dish. I don't think that he is a negative impact on the zone. And if we need outside shooting, we can sub at that point. But I think he needs to be playing more. And some of those other guys probably need to get less minutes in the rotation. So I did this thing because I noticed Ausar sits a lot. So, excuse me here. I talked about how when these guys sit for extended minutes, about how many actual minutes they sit during the game, how many actual minutes they're sitting in the chair waiting to go back in. And although, in a 48-minute game, if Ausar plays 28 minutes, he sat 20 minutes. But it's actually when you consider the timeouts and the time between periods and the stoppages in play and the challenges and all the different things that happen. The other night against Portland, his first time out, his literal sit time was 26 minutes. So from the time he subbed out to the time he came back in was just over 26 minutes. I timed it with all the timeouts and everything. So that's a long time. If you're an athlete, That's a long time to sit on the bench and then come in and try to get warmed up again. His second time, he sat out for a total of 19 minutes. Now, I did not include halftime because everybody sits at halftime. It's kind of a rest period. But he sat for 19 minutes the second time. And then the third time, he sat for almost 7 minutes. So 52 minutes of that game time, which, 2 hours of game time, 52 minutes he was sitting. And if you've played ball and if you've been on the court, you realize sitting for that long, it's really hard to get into a rhythm and to keep your legs fresh. And I know these are professional athletes and, they have ways of keeping themselves warm. But I think Thompson is sitting for too long of a period. He comes out early, typically one of the first guys, if not the first guy to come out, and then he sits for too long. And so I would like to see him not sit so much. If we're going to pull him out, let's leave him out for short stints like we do with Cade, and let's get him back in there because he is a true impact player to our team. And the guys that we have backing him up, Ron Holland is a great energy player, Javonte Green, but these guys can't do what he does. And so I'd like to see him play more. I do like seeing Ron get more minutes, but not at the expense of Ausar sitting as much as he is. He's in the top 20 in leagues, top 20 in the league in steals at almost 2 per game. He is typically guarding. He's making things very difficult on players that he's guarding. He's a lot of times picking up a guy full court and just making everything tough on him. And so I love to see what he's doing there. Averaging 11.8 points a game, 6 rebounds a game, 3 assists. And people say he's a bad shooter, but he's actually shooting 51.9% from the field. And so that's a pretty good shooting percentage if you ask me. That's higher than a lot of our other guys. He's only shooting 54% from the free throw line. So if you watch him go, almost every time he's 1 for 2. Almost every single time, 1 for 2. Very rarely misses both, very rarely makes both. And so 54% is a reflection of that. Only shooting 31% from 3. He has backed off from shooting the 3 so much, which I like because he's not a great three-point shooter. But 31% is higher than Cade, and so Cade is shooting a lot. So it's really not as bad as people like to think. His per 40 points per game, per 40 minutes is 16, almost 17 points a game. Per 40 rebounds is 8.5. And then his true shooting percentage is actually 54%. So I'm a big Ausar guy, and I think he needs more time. I think we're pulling him too quickly, and some of these other guys are getting too many minutes, in my opinion. We're a quarter of the way through the season now, and so I think this time we got to start settling in. Saturday night we played a 10-man rotation, which I liked. I think that's where we need to settle in at. And so some of these other guys are going to have to start getting less and less minutes. So the fan in you wants to see them play, but the competitor in me, the coach in me says, I want these guys playing the right amount of minutes and contributing to the wins. And he is a plus 25. We're a plus 25 when Ausar is on the court. And right now he's shooting less than 8 shots per game. And I just think he needs to be putting up more shots. The same thing with Duren. Duren is right around that 10 shots a game, 9 shots a game. I think Ausar needs to be putting up 10 to 12, maybe 10 to 15. I think Duren needs to be putting up, at least probably 12 to 18 shots per game. And so I'd like to see these guys getting more attempts. And so in my opinion, he needs to play more. He needs to shoot more. And so not much criticism of Ausar. Obviously, I think he could become a better shooter. Of course, he could work on that. He definitely needs to improve his free throw shooting. If he could become a three-point shooting threat, then it's game over. I mean, he's a real threat. I just would like to see JB playing him more. I know that essentially these rotations are being determined prior to the game, and so guys are just subbing when it's their turn. But I would like to see at this point in the season, and especially we get back from this NBA Cup break, I would like to see more situational coaching. I would like to see us putting in squads to match up with who's on the floor from the other team based on the timing of the game, based on the score of the game. Sometimes we have the B squad in there when the game is tight and when it's close, and we kind of stick with it till it's the other guy's turn to rotate in. And I know that, again, it's early. We're figuring things out. But by this point in the season, we know what we've got. And I'd like to see more situational coaching where we are substituting in reaction to what's happening on the other side of the court and what the other teams are giving us. And so that's my take on Ausar. Love to hear your thoughts on him. Love to hear your thoughts on that take. Do you think Ausar needs more minutes? Do you think he needs to be taking more shots? What's the downside to Ausar? Is he not a guy for the future that we need to build around? And so I think, Javonte Green is great. He's a great player, but he's not the future of the team. And so if you ask me to choose Ausar, Ron Holland, or Javonte Green sometimes give us more consistency even than Ron, but he's not the future of the squad. He's an older guy, and so he just needs to be kind of a limited minute rotation guy, in my opinion, so that we continue to build around this squad. And then the last thing I want to talk about today is another stinking trade rumor. Michigan diehards from a Twitter page called NBA Repost, I think it's called, had a trade proposal of bringing James Harden to the Pistons. So what are your thoughts about this? The Pistons would get James Harden and Brook Lopez, and the Clippers would get Tobias, Jaden Ivey, Marcus Sasser, and a 2026 first-round pick. And if it's not a top 10, or it's a protected, if it's a top 10, but if it's not, then they might get a few more picks on top of that. So it's not the richest trade we've ever heard, but giving up a player like Ivey, who has a lot of upside potential, in my opinion. You know my feelings about Ivey. I think we got to continue to give him more minutes. And I'm not ready to trade him yet until we just prove that he's not going to be the same guy as last year. And I don't think we'll know that until we start giving him more time. But Harden this year is actually averaging 26.8 points per game. He's in the top 10 in the league in scoring, averaging 8 assists. He's shooting 44% from the field, but he's 36 years old. So how much longer can he do it, right? I mean, Father Time is undefeated. And so, but with him doing all of that and leading his team, they're 6-18. So if one thing is Harden has proved in his career is that he's a phenomenal scorer, maybe one of the better scorers the league has ever seen, but he's not a winner. I mean, where has he won? He's been on some incredible teams in OKC, in Houston, and Brooklyn, even in the Clippers, having a pretty good squad with him, and he's never won. Like, he doesn't make it far in the playoffs, never won a championship. I don't even know if he's played in the NBA Finals. I don't think he ever has played in the NBA Finals. So in my opinion, great offensive player, contributes to the game, hard to stop, but definitely not a winner, and does not play defense. And so there is no room in Detroit for someone who doesn't play defense. I don't care how many points you put up. You come here, you're going to play D. And then Brook Lopez, averaging 6 points a game, 1 rebound, 2 rebounds, 39% from the field, 37 years old. So you're going to trade some of our young guys and some future picks for 2 guys that are, not a whole lot younger than me and have a very limited shelf life. And I think this is a terrible idea, terrible trade, but I know James Harden has a lot of fans, so I want to hear from you. What do you think? Does James Harden, is he a good option for Detroit? Does he solve that second scorer thing that we need? Certainly would be a short-term option, but I say absolutely not. No way, no James Harden in Detroit. Let's sound off in the comments. Let me know your thoughts, and let's let Trajan Langdon and all the front office know that if it was even a possibility, this is not what the fans want to see here in Detroit. So that's all I got for you guys today. What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about Isaiah and Ausar? I'd love to hear you do that. And I also want to hear your thoughts on Harden to the Pistons. So remember, once again, 2,500 subscribers is our next benchmark. That's where we're trying to get. So please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Share this with all your Pistons fans, friends. Let them know that we're bringing you great content here every day from my perspective, from a coach's perspective, and from a fan's perspective. I want to hear from you. What do you want to talk about? And make sure you hit that notification bell because we're going to bring you fresh content every single day right here on Pistons Daily. And as always, Detroit basketball. Let's go, baby.